The red star was dying. Its surface boiled with massive storms of fire, throwing bursts of light into the dark of space. Around it, broken planets drifted like ruins of a forgotten system. From a distance, it looked like a place where nothing living could survive. Yet humans came, because humans always pushed toward the unknown. The survey ship Aurora's wing slowed as it entered orbit. Captain Myra stood at the bridge window, staring at the burning horizon of the star. She had seen many strange skies in her years of exploration, but something about this one made her uneasy. The sensors showed unstable gravity waves near one of the planets, as if something massive was hidden beneath its crust. "Report," Myra said. Tomasz, the ship's lead scientist, leaned over his console. He was older than most of the crew, with a quiet patience that came from years of study. "We are detecting a structure on the third planet. It is not natural. Too much symmetry. Energy readings are faint, but they are still there." Myra turned her head. "How large?" "Enormous," Tomasz answered. "Bigger than any city we know. At least a mountain in size. Half buried under volcanic rock." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Discovering ruins was nothing new for humans. But to find something of this scale, still active near a dying star, felt different. "Set course," Myra ordered. "We are going down." The Aurora's wing descended through the thick atmosphere of the planet. Red clouds swirled around them, carrying ash from rivers of lava below. Lightning flashed between clouds, illuminating the blackened surface. Through the storms, the crew saw it, a colossal structure rising from the ground, made of stone darker than night. Its walls were carved with massive lines, like scars of fire frozen in rock. The building seemed to breathe heat, as if alive. The ship landed on a flat plain of cooled lava near the base. The ground trembled with the heartbeat of the planet. Myra led the first landing party, stepping out in protective suits. The air was heavy with ash. The ground cracked in places, showing glowing rivers of molten rock. Ahead, the structure loomed like a tomb built for giants. Its entrance was framed by pillars shaped like flames, taller than any tower humans had ever built. One of the soldiers, Ren, muttered over the comm, "Feels like it's waiting for us." "Stay alert," Myra said. "We are here to observe, not to get lost in fear." They approached the massive gates. Symbols were carved into the stone, sharp lines that glowed faintly with red fire. Tomasz brushed the surface with his scanner. The symbols shifted in the light, almost as if shadows moved within them. "It is a language," Tomasz said. "Not one I recognize. But it is old. Very old." The soldiers spread out, securing the perimeter. Drones flew overhead, scanning the upper walls. Images sent back showed that the structure stretched far beyond sight, disappearing into the black horizon. Ren pointed toward a broken corner of the gate. "Looks like something tried to break out." Myra studied the mark. The stone was scorched, as if a great force of heat had blasted from the inside. She felt a chill even though her suit was warm. "Inside?" one of the soldiers asked. Myra hesitated. She had led her people into dangerous places before: alien jungles, abandoned ships, lost colonies. But this tomb felt different. It felt awake. Still, her duty was clear. "Yes," Myra said firmly. "We go inside." The gate was too heavy to move, but there was a smaller side entrance, a crack torn open by time. One by one, the humans stepped into the shadows. Their helmet lights cut through the darkness, revealing tall walls that seemed to shimmer with hidden fire. Inside, the air was dry and silent, as if sound itself did not belong here. The floor was smooth black stone, marked with glowing veins that pulsed faintly, like the veins of a living creature. Every step echoed strangely, as if the tomb listened to their presence. Tomasz ran his scanner along the walls. "Energy is active here. Not natural." The lines in the stone are channels for power. Ren raised his weapon higher. Feels like a trap. It feels like history, Tomasz replied, though his voice shook. They reached a wide chamber. At its center stood massive stone slabs shaped like coffins, stacked against the walls. Some were broken open, revealing what lay inside. Bones. But not human bones. The skeletons were large, twice the size of a man. Their skulls were long, with teeth sharp like blades. Around them lay shattered armor fused with burn marks. It looked as if they had died in fire. One soldier whispered, "What happened here?" Tomasz bent closer, scanning. These remains are thousands of years old. Maybe more. This place is not only a tomb. It is a battlefield. The chamber walls showed carvings. Scenes of war. Creatures of fire clashing with shadows shaped like warriors. Towers burning, rivers boiling, skies filled with storms. In every carving, one symbol repeated the shape of a crystal burning with light. Myra touched the carving. What is this? Tomasz narrowed his eyes. A warning, maybe. A record of what was locked away. The air grew heavier. The red veins in the walls glowed brighter, as if reacting to their presence. Somewhere deeper in the tomb, a low rumble sounded. It was not the planet's quake this time. It came from inside. Ren lifted his rifle. "Captain, we are not alone here." Myra turned toward the shadows stretching deeper into the tomb. They were darker than before, moving against the walls like liquid smoke. For the first time since landing, Myra felt fear rise inside her. She gave the order. "Everyone, stay close. The deeper we go, the more answers we will find. But do not forget we may also find what killed the ones before us." The humans pressed on, their lights cutting paths into the ancient dark. Behind them, the red veins of fire grew stronger, as if the tomb itself had awakened from a long sleep. And somewhere in the silence, a whisper moved through the shadows. The passage narrowed as the human team moved deeper into the structure. Their helmet lights shone across walls that looked like black glass, smooth but cracked with glowing red lines. Every few steps, the ground shook slightly, as if something beneath the stone shifted. The deeper they went, the stronger the heat became, though the air felt dry and lifeless. Captain Myra walked in the front, her hand near the sidearm on her belt. She was not afraid of darkness, but this place pressed on her mind in ways she could not explain. It was not only the heat or the silence. It was the sense that the tomb knew they were here. Behind her, Tomasz kept scanning the walls with his device. His voice broke the silence. "These channels are feeding energy from deep inside the planet. The entire structure is alive, like a machine still running after thousands of years. I cannot understand how." Ren, the soldier, shifted nervously. "Machines this old should be dust. This thing is not just running. It is watching us." Myra did not answer. She had the same thought but chose not to say it aloud. Leadership meant carrying fear quietly so others could walk forward. The tunnel opened into another chamber. This one was taller, the ceiling lost in shadow. Their lights showed rows of tall pillars running along the sides. The pillars were carved with scenes, creatures of flame standing against forms of shadow. The carvings were rough, but their shapes told a story of endless war. Tomasz stopped at one pillar, brushing away a layer of ash with his gloved hand. "Look at this," he whispered. The carving showed a circle of fire bound by lines of shadow, as if imprisoned. "It is not only war. It is a sealing. Something was captured here." Ren muttered, "Then maybe we should not open it." Another soldier, Ilya, pointed at the ground. "Captain, look." They saw more bones scattered along the floor, brittle and blackened. Some belonged to the same giant species they had seen before. Others were different, smaller, with strange skull shapes. They were all burned, as if fire had consumed them where they fell. The chamber stretched into two paths. One path sloped upward, broken by fallen rock. The other led downward into deeper shadow. Myra studied both. Her instincts told her the truth was below. She raised her hand. "We go down." The descent was long. Their lights touched strange symbols that glowed faintly even without contact. The glow seemed to pulse with their footsteps. Tomasz read them aloud as he studied. These words repeat. "I think it means fire. This one means shadow." Together they form a warning. "The fire sleeps, the shadows guard." That phrase appears again and again. Ren shook his head. "That is not a warning I want to test." The passage widened into a hall. Here the carvings were sharper, as if made with care to last forever. They showed armies of shadow figures standing in lines, each carrying spears of black light. Against them were figures of flame with wings, striking from the sky. The walls seemed alive with battle scenes. But the most unsettling image was at the end of the hall. A massive wall carving of a crystal burning like a sun, surrounded by both shadow and flame, both fighting to control it. Tomasz lowered his scanner slowly. That crystal must be real. The heart of flame. It was the center of everything. Myra stared at the carving. And if it is here, it may still be alive. The moment she spoke, the chamber answered. A deep rumble spread through the walls. The red veins along the stone flared brighter, glowing like rivers of fire. Dust fell from the ceiling. The ground vibrated, not like a quake but like footsteps. "Movement," Ilya said quickly, raising her rifle. "Something is coming." From the far shadows, shapes began to form. At first they looked like smoke, twisting and thin. But then they grew denser, pulling together until they resembled tall figures with arms and legs. Their bodies were made of black mist, but their eyes burned like hot coals. Ren cursed under his breath. "Guardians." The shadows stepped forward silently, moving with purpose. They did not breathe, they did not stumble. They came like soldiers answering an ancient call. Myra shouted, "Hold position. Do not fire unless they attack." The figures stopped a few meters away, standing in a row across the hall. Their heads tilted, as if studying the humans. The silence stretched, heavy and unbroken. Then one shadow stepped forward. Its chest glowed faintly with red fire, as if something burned inside. It lifted a long spear of dark light and struck it against the ground. The sound echoed like thunder. In answer, the rest of the shadows raised their weapons. "Defensive formation," Myra ordered, her voice steady though her heart raced. The soldiers aimed their rifles. Drones hovered overhead, lights cutting through the darkness. The first shadow rushed forward, moving faster than a human eye could track. Ren fired, the shot slicing through the figure. For a moment it split apart into smoke, but then it pulled itself back together. The bullet did nothing. Another shadow swung its spear, striking at Ilya. She ducked, firing point blank. The blast of energy made the figure explode into dark mist, but again it reformed. "They cannot be destroyed," Ren shouted. Tomasz shouted back, "They are not alive. They are energy bound to form. You cannot kill them with force." "Then how do we stop them?" Ilya yelled. The shadows pressed forward, their weapons cutting lines of fire into the stone. The humans retreated step by step, fighting just to stay alive. Myra searched the walls desperately for an answer. Her eyes fell on the repeated carvings, the fire and the shadows, bound together. The words came back to her, "The fire sleeps, the shadows guard." They are guardians, she realized aloud. We are the intruders. They are not trying to win a battle. They are trying to keep us from going deeper. Ren gritted his teeth. Then maybe we should listen. But Myra felt something stronger than fear. humanity had crossed the stars not to turn back at shadows. If there was knowledge or power inside this tomb, it could change the fate of her people. No, she said firmly. We find the truth. We find the heart. The team forced their way down another corridor, weapons firing to keep the shadows at a distance. The guardians followed but did not strike to kill, only to drive them back. It was as if the tomb wanted them contained, not destroyed. At last, after what felt like hours of running and fighting, the humans stumbled into a smaller chamber. The guardians stopped at the threshold, standing motionless like statues. They would not enter. The chamber glowed faintly with red light from symbols etched deep into the walls. In the center lay a broken tablet of stone. Tomasz knelt, scanning the writing. His voice was quiet but heavy with meaning. It says this place is a prison. The fire is locked below. The shadows were left as guards, sworn never to leave. If the fire wakes, it will consume everything. Myra looked at the shadows waiting in the hall. Their eyes still burned, but they made no move to follow. For the first time, Myra understood. They were not only guards. They were warning them, just as the carvings had. The fire slept here, and it did not want to be found. The chamber walls pulsed with faint red light, as though the stone itself carried a heartbeat. Captain Myra stood still, breathing slowly inside her helmet. Behind her, the shadows lined the corridor like statues, waiting with weapons raised but making no move forward. Their stillness was more terrifying than their attack. It was as if they had judged the humans and were now deciding what to do. Tomasz studied the broken tablet in the center of the chamber. His voice shook as he spoke. It says the shadows were born to guard. They do not live, they do not rest. They are bound to the fire forever. We should not stay here. Ren, holding his rifle tight, muttered, "For once, I agree." But Myra's eyes did not leave the dark figures outside. Something about their stillness reminded her of soldiers holding a line. They had not destroyed the humans even though they could have. That meant purpose. The tomb itself had rules, and so far the humans had not broken them. We go deeper, Myra decided at last. The soldiers turned their heads toward her in disbelief. Ren shook his head. "Captain, that is madness. You saw what those things can do. They will kill us the moment we step past them." "They did not kill us," Myra answered. Her voice was calm, but her heart raced. "They only tried to push us back. That means there is something beyond this point they want to keep hidden. That is what we came for." For a long moment, no one spoke. The silence pressed against them like weight. Finally, Tomasz nodded. "She is right. If we turn back now, we learn nothing. But if we go forward, at least we understand what was sealed here." Reluctantly, Ren lowered his weapon. "Then I hope curiosity is worth dying for." The team stepped past the threshold. The shadows moved at once. Their eyes flared brighter, and the dark mist of their bodies rippled with sudden life. They struck the floor with their spears, sending a sound like rolling thunder through the hall. The entire tomb shook in answer, dust falling from the ceiling. "They are warning us," Ilya said quickly, her rifle aimed but fingers steady. "Then we keep moving," Myra said. The humans pressed forward. The guardians advanced as well, surrounding them from every side. Shadows poured from cracks in the walls, joining the ranks. What had been a handful of figures became dozens. Their glowing eyes lit the corridor like a forest of embers. The soldiers fired. Bright bolts of energy cut through the shadows, scattering them into smoke. But the smoke always gathered again, the figures reforming within seconds. The guardians could not be destroyed. Ren shouted over the comms, "We cannot hold them back forever." "Then do not fight to destroy," Myra ordered. "Fight to survive." They advanced step by step, using drones and rifles to push the shadows back. Every corridor opened into another hall, each lined with more carvings of fire and war. The tomb was alive with sound now. The walls groaned, the floor shook, and the air burned hotter with each passing moment. At last, the humans reached a vast chamber. It was larger than any they had seen before, a hall so tall their lights could not reach the ceiling. At its center stood towering statues of warriors carved from black stone. Each statue held a weapon of fire frozen in solid form. Their faces were stern, alien, unblinking. Tomasz whispered, "These are not just carvings. They are vessels." Before anyone could ask what he meant, the statue's chests lit up with burning red cracks. Lines of fire spread through the stone like veins. One by one, the statues began to move. Their eyes blazed with molten light as they stepped down from their pedestals. "They are waking," Ilya said, her voice tight. The Guardians of Mist had been terrible, but these were worse. These were not illusions or shadows. These were machines, forged of stone and fire, carrying the weight of forgotten war. The first statue raised its weapon, a blade of glowing rock, and brought it down on the ground. The impact sent a wave of fire across the floor, forcing the humans to dive for cover. Drones exploded in the heat. Ren rolled behind a broken pillar. "We are not fighting this, Captain. We need to run." But the gates of the chamber slammed shut. Massive stone doors sealed the exits with a sound like a mountain collapsing. The team was trapped. Myra stood, her visor fogged from heat, her body trembling. But her voice was steady. "We do not run. We adapt." She pointed toward the walls. "Look at the carvings. Every image shows fire and shadow together. The fire was never meant to be alone. That means we need the shadows." Tomasz understood at once. "The shadows are guards, not enemies. If we can make them see us as allies, they may fight the statues instead of us." "But how do we do that?" Ren demanded. Myra raised her weapon, not at the shadows, but at the fiery statues. She fired at one of the burning giants. The bolt exploded across its chest, barely slowing it down. But in the same instant, the shadows reacted. They swarmed forward, surrounding the statues, spears flashing with black light. The tomb shook with the force of the battle. Fire and shadow clashed in the chamber, filling the air with sparks and smoke. The humans crouched behind the pillars, watching in awe. The Guardians of Shadow fought fiercely, striking at the stone giants with unbreakable discipline. "It worked," Tomasz breathed. "We gave them their enemy." But the battle was far from safe. Every swing of the giants' weapons sent waves of fire through the hall. The heat melted stone and scorched the ground. The shadows pressed hard but struggled against the giants' strength. Myra realized they could not remain in the chamber. If the fire spread, they would be destroyed along with both armies. She shouted over the comms. "There must be another path. Search the walls." Ilya ran along the edge, her scanner sweeping. At last she shouted, "Here!" A passage hidden behind the carvings. The team rushed toward her as the battle raged behind them. One of the giants saw their movement and hurled its flaming blade across the hall. The weapon struck near them, blasting the ground into molten cracks. Myra pulled Tomasz forward just as the stone melted beneath his boots. "Move, now." Together they pushed into the narrow passage. The shadows did not follow, still locked in their war against the giants. The sounds of battle faded as the humans descended deeper into the tomb. When at last the noise grew faint, the team stopped to catch their breath. The corridor ahead glowed brighter than any before, lit by veins of fire running like rivers through the stone. Tomasz leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "The tomb is not just testing us. It is forcing us to choose sides. Fire against shadow. Shadow against fire. But why?" Myra's eyes narrowed. She looked ahead where the light grew stronger. Because whatever waits below does not belong to either. It belongs to whoever survives the trials. The team walked on, their hearts heavy with fear and wonder. Behind them, the sound of battle shook the tomb. Ahead of them, the glow of the fire promised both answers and danger. For the first time, Myra wondered if the tomb wanted them here or if it was preparing them for something greater. The passage sloped downward like a throat leading into the heart of the planet. Heat pressed against the humans from all sides, but the air remained strangely dry, as if the tomb itself swallowed the fire before it could burn them. Their lights barely mattered anymore, for the walls glowed with streams of molten red that pulsed slowly, like veins of a living body. Myra walked first, her jaw tight. Behind her, Tomasz scanned the markings that covered every surface. His device beeped with irregular signals, unable to process the energy around them. Ren and Ilya guarded the rear, rifles raised, though both knew their weapons had little effect against what they had already faced. The deeper they went, the more the silence grew heavy. It was not the silence of emptiness but of waiting, as if countless unseen eyes watched their steps. Finally, the passage opened into another chamber. This one was different from the others. Instead of statues or coffins, it held a great circle carved into the floor. Around the circle were tall spires of stone, each glowing with lines of fire. The circle itself was filled with carvings, spirals upon spirals, like a map drawn in flame. Tomasz moved closer, kneeling to study the designs. His voice carried awe and fear. This is no tomb. It is a prison. The builders captured something here and built the shadows to guard it. Ren scanned the dark corners of the chamber. And what exactly did they capture? Because I would very much like to leave before we find out. Tomasz did not answer immediately. His eyes followed the spirals until he stopped at the center. There, carved deep into the stone, was the shape of a crystal. Around it, fire and shadow clashed in endless motion. He traced the lines with his glove. They called it the heart of flame. A living energy drawn from the core of stars. They tried to control it, but it was too strong. So they bound it here. That is what the shadows are for. To make sure it never escapes. Myra stepped closer, her eyes fixed on the carving. And if someone releases it? Tomasz looked up at her, his face pale. Then fire will consume everything. Planets, ships, stars. It does not know mercy. It only burns. The words sank into the team like cold stone. They had faced dangers before: alien weapons, hostile worlds, pirates, even plagues. But this was different. This was not an enemy that could be reasoned with or fought. This was a force older than memory, a storm caged in stone. Ilya spoke softly. If that is true, Captain, then maybe we should leave it locked and seal this place behind us. Myra wanted to agree. Every instinct told her to turn back. But another thought pressed against her mind. Humanity was young compared to other races in the galaxy. They were always underestimated, always told they were too reckless, too fragile, too new to deserve a place among the stars. And here, hidden in this dying system, lay a power that could change that. We cannot just walk away, Myra said firmly. If others find this tomb, they might try to use it. At least if we understand what it is, we can prepare. Ren stared at her, his voice low with anger. Captain, this is not about knowledge. This is about survival. You saw what happened when we stepped too deep. Those guardians nearly killed us, and they were only the first wall of defense. Whatever lies below will not let us walk away so easily. Tomasz raised a hand. He is right about one thing. The tomb does not test strength. It tests choice. The carvings show that over and over. The builders were warning anyone who came after them. The fire can tempt, the shadows can frighten, but in the end it is about what you choose to take. Myra thought of the shadows in the corridor, the way they had not struck to kill until the statues awoke. She thought of the carvings showing fire bound in chains. The builders had known their power was too great, yet they left behind doors and paths that could still be walked. Why? Before she could speak, the chamber itself answered. The floor trembled, and the circle in the stone flared with sudden light. The spirals burned like rivers of lava, glowing brighter until the chamber was filled with searing red. Something is happening, Ilya said, raising her weapon. At the center of the circle, fire began to rise, not flame in the normal sense, but living fire, twisting and shaping itself like smoke. Within it, shadows gathered, trying to press the fire down. For a moment it looked like a storm of light and darkness wrestling against each other. Tomasz backed away, fear and fascination warring in his eyes. It is the heart. Even in its prison, it still fights to be free. The fire surged higher, and the humans heard a sound, not with their ears but inside their minds. A whisper, fierce and endless, calling out in a language they could not understand. It was not words but feelings: hunger, power, freedom. Ren clutched his head. It is inside us. It wants out. Myra steadied herself, forcing her mind against the pressure. She spoke aloud, though her voice trembled. We came here to learn. Show us what you are. The fire pulsed, and for a heartbeat the humans saw visions. Stars collapsing, worlds burning, armies of shadows falling in rivers of light. The builders of the tomb screamed as their cities turned to ash. And then they saw the prison being made, the shadows bound, the last hope to keep the fire from spreading. The vision ended, leaving the team gasping. Tomasz dropped to his knees. It is worse than I thought. This is no weapon. This is destruction itself. Myra looked at the flames still twisting in the circle. Her mind burned with the vision, but another thought would not leave her. What if humanity could hold it? What if, unlike the builders, they found a way to balance fire and shadow? Her voice was quiet but firm. If the tomb was meant to be hidden forever, it would have collapsed long ago. Instead, it is still here. Still alive. Maybe it waits for someone who can make the right choice. Ren stepped forward, his face hard. Or maybe it waits for fools. Captain, you cannot seriously think humanity can control this. No race could. Myra met his eyes. Then we have to decide if we walk away or face what comes next. Because leaving without choice may be the same as opening the door for someone else. The chamber shook again, harder this time. Cracks spread through the walls, glowing with fierce light. The shadows surged across the carvings, pressing down against the fire, but their edges were fraying, breaking. Tomasz rose to his feet. It is weakening. The prison cannot hold forever. The team stood in the burning glow, sweat on their faces, hearts racing. They knew the truth now. The tomb was not simply history. It was a warning, a prison, and a test. And soon, they would have to decide: bind the fire once more, or release it and face the storm. Myra tightened her grip on her weapon. Her voice was steady, though inside she felt the weight of a galaxy pressing against her shoulders. Then we go to the core. We face the heart itself. And when the time comes, we will choose. The air grew heavier the deeper they went. The narrow passage twisted like a wound carved through the planet's flesh, glowing red with veins of fire that pulsed as though alive. Every few steps, the humans felt a faint pressure in their minds, like whispers pressing at the edges of thought. Captain Myra kept her hand near her weapon, though she knew bullets and beams meant little in this place. The danger here was not only physical. It pressed into their hearts, trying to break them before they even reached the core. Ren walked close behind her, his voice sharp with tension. Captain, the deeper we go, the stronger it gets. The shadows, the fire, whatever this thing is, it is inside our heads. If we keep walking, we may not come back the same. Myra did not turn. Maybe. But if we stop, we learn nothing. And then this place stays ready for the next race that comes after us. I will not leave it for them to misuse. Tomasz, scanning the walls, spoke quietly. It is more than whispers. This is influence. The fire wants us. It shows us fear and desire so we cannot resist. As if to prove his words, the walls flickered with sudden images. Myra froze when she saw earth-blue oceans, green forests, the home she had not seen for years. But then the image burned, oceans boiling away, cities collapsing into ash. She blinked and the vision was gone, replaced by cold stone. Ren gasped behind her. His voice shook. I saw my family. Alive. Smiling. Then fire took them. Ilya, gripping her rifle, whispered, I saw nothing. Only endless darkness. Tomasz looked pale. The tomb is testing each of us. Showing what we most fear, what we most want. The shadows and fire are not only outside. They are in us now. Myra steadied herself. Then we remember what is real. We are not here for visions. We are here for truth. The passage ended in a great chamber unlike any before. The walls curved like a sphere, every inch covered with glowing carvings. At the center rose a platform of black stone, and upon it floated the heart of flame. It was not a simple crystal, as the carvings had shown. It was a swirling mass of light, burning like molten sun, yet contained in invisible chains of shadow. The fire moved as if alive, twisting and stretching against its prison. When it struck the chains, sparks of black and red scattered across the air. The humans shielded their eyes against its glow. Heat poured through their suits, though the stone beneath their feet remained cool. Tomasz whispered, his voice filled with awe. This is it. The source. The living fire of stars. Ren shook his head. This is death. We should turn around and seal this place before it consumes us. But as they spoke, the fire stirred. The whispers grew louder, flooding their minds with visions. Myra saw herself standing on a battlefield where alien fleets burned before her. Humanity rose in triumph, no longer mocked or doubted, but feared and respected. In her hands she held the heart itself, bending the stars to her command. The vision filled her chest with fierce pride until the image shifted. She saw Earth again, burning not by alien hands but by her own choice, the fire raging out of control. She staggered, breaking the vision with a sharp breath. It is trying to tempt us. Ren groaned, clutching his helmet. I saw my family again. They begged me to stay. If I take the fire, maybe I can make them live again. No, Myra snapped. That is not real. That is the fire trying to trick you. Tomasz's hands shook as he held his scanner, though his eyes never left the heart. The builders faced the same choice. That is why the tomb shows us visions. Fire for power, shadow for fear. They want to know if we are ruled by either. The heart pulsed with sudden fury. Chains of shadow strained as the fire surged outward, filling the chamber with blazing light. A wave of heat knocked the humans to the ground. Their visors darkened automatically, but even then the glow seared their eyes. Ilya shouted, Captain, the prison is breaking. The shadows on the walls stirred, pouring down like rivers of smoke. They formed tall figures again, dozens of them, standing between the humans and the heart. Their burning eyes fixed on the intruders. Ren raised his rifle. Here it comes again. But the shadows did not attack. They stood still, weapons lowered, as if waiting for something. Tomasz gasped. They are waiting for us to choose. If we reach for the fire, they will strike. If we turn away, they may let us live. Myra rose slowly, her gaze locked on the swirling mass. The fire called to her, stronger than before. She felt its hunger, its promise. Power to make humanity strong enough to stand against any alien empire. Power to end wars before they began. Power to protect her people forever. But she also felt its cost. The fire would never serve without consuming. To take it was to risk turning all she loved to ash. Her heart battled with itself. Humanity was young. They were explorers, dreamers, fighters. But perhaps their strength was not in wielding power, but in resisting it. The chamber trembled as the fire surged again, breaking two chains of shadow. Light spilled across the floor, burning the carvings away. The shadows hissed, drawing their spears, ready to strike. Myra raised her hand to her team. "Hold your fire. Do not attack." Ren's voice broke with anger. "Captain, it will kill us all if we leave it free." "No," Myra said firmly. "We are not here to claim it. We are here to prove we can walk away." For a long, endless moment, the chamber held its breath. The fire writhed, pressing against its prison, while the shadows stood ready. Then Myra lowered her weapon to the ground and stepped back from the platform. One by one, the others followed. Tomasz dropped his scanner. Ilya lowered her rifle. Ren hesitated the longest, shaking with frustration, but finally he let his weapon fall. The effect was instant. The shadows moved not to strike, but to close ranks around the heart. Their bodies stretched into chains, reforming the prison. The light dimmed, the flames settling back into a slow, furious swirl. The whispers faded from the humans' minds, leaving silence so deep it rang in their ears. Myra breathed hard, her voice hoarse. "We passed. Not by taking power, not by giving in to fear, but by choosing restraint." Tomasz nodded weakly. "That is what the builders wanted. Not strength, not courage, but wisdom." Ren stared at the heart one last time, his face shadowed with longing and anger. "Then what happens now?" Myra looked at the shadows sealing the prison. They did not move toward her. They only stood guard once more, as they had for countless ages. "Now," she said, "we find our way out. And we tell the galaxy what lies here." The team turned from the platform, their steps heavy with the weight of what they had seen. Behind them, the heart of flame pulsed in silence, chained once more by shadows, waiting for the next soul brave enough or foolish enough to face its test. The humans thought the danger had ended once they turned away from the heart of flame. But as they stepped from the chamber, the ground shook beneath their feet. A deep rumble echoed through the tomb, louder than thunder, as if the planet itself had woken. Captain Myra held up her hand, steadying the group. "Stay sharp. This place may not be done with us." The walls around them lit with new carvings. Unlike the ones before, these showed not ancient builders but humans. Myra saw herself and her crew etched into the stone, their movements captured in glowing lines as if the tomb had been recording them all along. Each carving showed their choices, their fights, their fears, their decision to turn from the heart. Ren frowned at the images. "It is watching us. Judging us. Maybe even shaping our path." Tomasz touched the glowing wall. "The builders wanted witnesses. Every step we take becomes part of the trial." The rumble grew stronger. Ahead, the tunnel widened into another vast chamber, larger than all the others combined. The air was thick and heavy, almost too dense to breathe. The floor was split into giant slabs, and molten rivers of fire ran between them, sending red light across the walls. At the far end stood a towering gate, carved from black stone and sealed with chains of shadow. Ilya narrowed her eyes. That must be the way out. But the gate was guarded. From the molten rivers rose forms larger than any they had faced before. They were not simple shadow soldiers but titans, each one a giant made of fire and smoke, their eyes blazing like suns. They held no weapons, for their bodies were weapons themselves, their hands like burning claws, their steps shaking the chamber. The crew froze. The Titan's gaze fell on them, heavy and merciless. Ren whispered, "We cannot fight that. Not with rifles. Not with anything." Tamash spoke quickly, fear sharpening his words. Then it is not a fight. It is the final trial. The builders want to know not only if we can resist power, but if we can escape without destroying ourselves. The Titans roared, their voices like firestorms, and the first stepped forward. Its weight cracked the stone slab, sending shards into the molten river. The heat rose until their suits screamed warnings, systems straining to keep them alive. Myra steadied her breathing. We cannot kill them. But maybe we can outthink them. Spread out. Do not give them one target. They split across the stone platforms as the Titans advanced. One swung its massive arm toward Myra, the impact shattering the slab beside her. She leapt aside, the heat scorching her armor. Another Titan raised a wall of flame to cut Tamash off from the rest. Tamash shouted, "They are hurting us. Not killing us outright, but driving us like prey." Ren fired a blast from his rifle into the chest of a Titan. The beam sank into the burning body, vanishing without effect. The Titan turned its blazing eyes on him, and Ren felt as if the fire stared through his soul. "Nothing works," Ren cried. "We are finished." Myra barked back, "No. There is always a way." Her eyes moved to the carvings on the walls. They were shifting again, showing not only their past choices but also scenes of the trial itself. She saw tiny glowing figures running, leaping across the stone platforms, avoiding the Titans without fighting them. The carvings were giving them the answer. The trial was not about winning. It was about endurance and unity. "Tamash," Myra called, "what do you see?" He scanned the walls quickly. "They want us to reach the gate. The Titans will block us, but if we move as one, protecting each other, we can cross." Ren cursed under his breath. "We will burn before we make it halfway." Myra's voice was iron. "Then we move faster. Stay close. Watch each other's backs. Go." Together they ran, leaping from one slab of stone to the next. The molten rivers hissed below, throwing sparks into the air. The Titans roared, striking down with hands of flame, but the humans dodged, rolling across the slabs just before each blow landed. Ilya fired short bursts from her rifle, not to harm but to distract. The flashes of light drew the Titans' attention for precious seconds, allowing the others to cross. Ren gritted his teeth, forcing his fear down, pulling Tamash up when he stumbled. Myra kept at the front, eyes fixed on the black gate. Each step felt heavier, the heat pressing like a mountain on her chest. But she refused to slow. One Titan slammed its fist down, splitting a slab in two. Ren nearly fell into the molten river, but Myra grabbed his arm at the last second, hauling him back with all her strength. The Titans' fire swept over them, singing their armor, but they pushed forward. At last they reached the final stretch. The gate towered above, sealed with chains of shadow that pulsed like veins. The Titans gathered behind, their roars shaking the chamber, preparing for one last strike. Tamash staggered, pointing at the gate. "The chains, they react to choice, not strength. We cannot break them by force. We must prove we are worthy." Myra placed her hand on the cold black stone. For a moment, silence fell. Then the whispers returned, softer this time, like a question in her mind. Would she demand power? Would she beg for safety? Would she surrender in fear? She thought of Earth. Of the stars. Of her crew standing beside her through fire and shadow. Her answer was simple. "We ask for nothing but freedom." The chains of shadow loosened. With a sound like rushing wind, they unraveled, melting away into the darkness. The gate shuddered, then slowly began to open. Cool air swept into the chamber, washing over the humans like a blessing. Behind them, the Titans froze mid-step. Their flames dimmed, their massive forms fading into smoke. One by one, they vanished into the molten rivers, leaving the chamber empty and silent once more. Ren collapsed to his knees, gasping. We made it. Against all odds, we made it. Ilya lowered her rifle, her arms trembling. Not by fighting. By holding together. Tamash's face shone with awe as he looked back at the empty chamber. That was the final trial. The builders tested not only courage, not only restraint, but unity. Alone, we would have fallen. Together, we endured. Myra looked at her crew, their faces drawn with exhaustion but unbroken. Then she turned her eyes to the open gate. Beyond it lay the final passage, perhaps the way back to the surface, perhaps something more. We are not finished yet, she said. One more step, and we are free. They rose, one by one, and walked toward the light beyond the gate. Their steps were heavy, but their hearts carried the strength of what they had faced. Behind them, the tomb of fire and shadows returned to silence, waiting for the next who would dare its trials. The gate opened wide, and the crew stepped into a long passage filled with white light. After all the fire and shadows, the brightness was almost painful. Their eyes watered as they adjusted, and slowly the new chamber revealed itself. It was not like the others. There were no flames, no carvings of war, no molten rivers. Instead the walls were smooth, glowing faintly with a gentle silver tone. The air was cool and calm, carrying the scent of stone untouched by heat. It felt peaceful, almost like a sanctuary. Ren let out a breath. For once, it feels safe. Tamash studied the walls carefully. Safe, yes. But this is not the end. This is the final message. They walked together, their boots echoing softly against the floor. At the far end stood a tall pedestal carved from crystal. Resting on it was not a weapon, not a jewel of power, but a simple sphere of light, floating above the pedestal without support. The glow from the sphere filled the room, pure and steady. Captain Myra approached it slowly. The whispers returned in her mind, but softer now, no longer tempting or demanding. They were clear and calm, like a voice carried by wind. You have passed through shadow and flame. You have turned from greed, endured trials, and walked as one. You stand where few have stood before. Myra felt the words not only in her mind but in her heart. She glanced at her crew, who watched silently, their faces lit by the glow. The voice continued, the builders were not gods. They were mortal, like you. But they learned one truth, power divides, unity endures. So they left this place, not as a treasure to claim, but as a test. Those who seek control are consumed. Those who stand together find the path forward. Ilya whispered, almost to herself, it was never about the heart of flame. It was about us. The sphere of light pulsed gently, as if agreeing. Myra reached out, but her hand stopped short. She realized she did not need to touch it. The meaning was already clear. Ren asked, so what do we do now? Take it? Leave it? Tamash shook his head. It is not meant to be taken. It is meant to be remembered. The real gift is not the sphere. It is the lesson. The whispers faded, leaving silence behind. Yet the silence felt whole, not empty. Myra nodded slowly. She turned from the pedestal and motioned to her crew. We leave it as it is. The tomb is not ours to own. It belongs to those who built it, and to those who come after. They walked past the pedestal toward another archway that had appeared in the wall. Beyond it, steps climbed upward, carved from the same glowing stone. Their footsteps carried them higher and higher until at last they emerged into open air. The sky above was dark blue, stars scattered like silver dust. The twin moons of the planet hung low on the horizon. After so long trapped inside the tomb, the night air felt like freedom. Ren laughed, his voice rough but joyful. We are alive. Against everything, we made it out. Ilya sank to the ground and stared up at the sky. I never thought I would see the stars again. Myra breathed deeply, filling her lungs with the cool air. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she spoke, her voice steady. We will carry this with us. What we faced in there is not just a story to tell. It is a reminder of who we must be. Tomasz sat beside her, his expression thoughtful. The galaxy is full of powers greater than ours. Alien empires, ancient machines, forces we cannot yet understand. If we chase strength without wisdom, we will destroy ourselves. But if we remember what we learned in that tomb, we will endure. The crew fell silent, each lost in their own thoughts. The tomb loomed behind them, its stone walls blending with the cliffs. To any passing traveler, it would seem like an ordinary mountain. Yet they knew the truth. Inside, fire and shadows still waited, watching for the next who dared to enter. Morning came slowly, painting the sky with pale gold. Their ship still rested in the canyon below, battered but intact. As they boarded, the systems hummed to life. The engines glowed, ready to lift them back to the stars. Ren stood at the window, looking down at the planet shrinking beneath them. Do you think anyone else will try the tomb? Myra adjusted the controls, her eyes steady. Yes. Someone will. But the tomb will test them, as it tested us. And only those who walk with unity will survive. Ilya smiled faintly. Then maybe it is not a tomb at all. Maybe it is a teacher. Tomasz leaned back in his seat, his voice soft. A teacher of fire and shadows. The ship broke free of the atmosphere, stars filling the view. For a while, no one spoke. They simply looked ahead, toward the endless sky. But Myra's mind was not quiet. She thought of the carvings, of the titans, of the chains of shadow, and of the whisper that said unity endures. She wondered if the builders had known humanity would come, or if they simply left their message for anyone who could understand. Either way, the lesson had found its way into human hands, and she would not let it fade. She turned to her crew. We tell this story to Earth. Not as a tale of treasure, not as a victory, but as a warning and a hope. We tell them what we faced, and what we learned. If we forget, then the tomb's trials mean nothing. Ren nodded firmly. We will not forget. Ilya's voice carried quiet strength. Together we will carry it. Tomasz added, and maybe one day, when humanity stands at the edge of another choice, this memory will guide us. The stars stretched before them, endless and waiting. Their journey was far from over, but they carried more than survival now. They carried the legacy of the tomb. As their ship drifted into the dark sea of space, the planet below remained silent. The tomb of fire and shadows kept its secrets, patient as stone, waiting for the next who would seek its truth. But for Myra and her crew, the trial was done. They had faced fire, they had faced shadow, and they had faced themselves. And in the end, they had walked out not as seekers of power, but as keepers of wisdom. The galaxy was wide, its dangers many, but they were no longer afraid. Whatever came, they would endure because unity was stronger than fire, stronger than shadow, stronger than fear. And so the tomb became not an end, but a beginning.